Hello everybody, welcome to our next episode of Leap Forward with Riesterer Schnell. Today's discussion, we're going to discuss some wear items as we're coming into spring and things to look for on tillage tools and then also on planters. So we're standing in front of a 1795 planter. That's an exact emerge with an exact rate system on it. And I got two of my counterparts to help with today's discussion.
Yeah, I'm Andy Sorensen, planter and combine specialist with the dealership, and we also have Brutus.
Yep, technician here at the Chilton location.
Perfect. So first we're going to get started with some tillage tool items. So as we're getting ready for spring tillage here, we're getting those tillage tools out of the shed. Field cultivator, we want to check our sweeps out, see how those are looking as we go into the spring. Do we got to replace some of the shovels on there? And then things to keep in mind is we've got several different options of shovels available on these. So this first shovel that I've got here, you can see it's a little more low profile. For those of you listening, it's kind of like a flatter shovel. These are designed for high-speed situations where we can run that field cultivator up to 10 miles an hour. And then with that flatter design, we still have decent wear behind them. To have less of the friction and drag on it. So that's one option there. We got another option of what they call a full width shovel. So again, for those of you not watching, full width shovel, instead of kind of having the two wings that go off on it, it's going to be a solid piece across. Now, these shovels do a little bit better as far as wear and tear. They'll hold up a little bit better. They'll hold the shape of the shovel a little bit better, and then give us a decent job in the field as well as far as our ground conditions. And then we can take it a step further, and we also offer what we call an extended wear shovel. Now on this one, you're going to see on the bottom side of it, there's some extended wear metal on here. It's a hardened metal. It kind of looks like a weld bead if you can't see it, but basically that's a hardened edge on here to extend the life of that. And we've got different size shovels available. There's 7-inch, 10-inch, a couple others in between. But it's really finding, what fits your soils best, but making sure we're replacing them at the right times. The extended wear shovels, they're a little over double the price of the non-extended wear shovels that would be the exact same size of it. And the feedback that we get on those shovels is that they're typically lasting like twice as long. We're not necessarily seeing a money savings on them. Basically the added cost of that shovel and the life you get out of it, it's kind of a wash, but is what customers like with it, is you're not underneath that field cultivator having to change those shovels as often. So there's going to be less labor and time involved with those. We got a lot of high-speed discs and VTs out there as well. So on those, we're basically looking at our disc blade for wear on there. This particular blade is a 20-inch blade on there. So as we measure our blades each season, we want to see where those are at. So this is a 20-inch blade, and they say that you can have 20% wear on there. So that would be basically 4 inches on this disc. So we could run it down to 16 inches. Now, on these discs like that, or even the shovels, for example, we can run them down that low. As you run them down that low, you might find out that you're not reaching, the true depth that you're looking to achieve with that tillage tool, or you might not get the seed bed prep that you're looking for with it. So definitely key, keeping our tillage tools up to speed as far as the wear items on there, so that we can create that good seed bed we're looking for. And that's kind of just a rough overview of some of the tillage wear items. Now Andy and Brute are going to take us into our planter wear items.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. Just getting that first pass in the field, getting ready for the planter. But as we know, planter, there's a lot of items on here that are important to the consistency of where you're placing that seed, how you're closing the trench, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of go through item by item here. Just stuff that we're seeing pre-check to make sure that we're putting that seed exactly where we want it to be, so we get the best yields out of these planters. So Brute, we're going to go through here, kind of the first step. What are we looking at? We're going to go through probably our parallel arms here, right? We have an upper and lower.
Correct. Yeah, so the big thing with parallel arms is it's something that you always can't see that it is wearing out. Big telltale sign is standing behind the roll unit, and sometimes you'll notice that they get off center, they're a little twisted. It's kind of a sign that the bushings are starting to wear on your arms. I guess the biggest thing I'd say with arms and the bushings is it's one of those things that they get too bad, you're going to break arms before you notice a performance problem in the field.
Sure. And with all these connections kind of going down there, breaking an arm, you could pull and tug on stuff. So making sure that those are checked before season and in good working order, so we're not damaging any components throughout the season on these. Kind of going down here, we do have, this one has got our roll cleaner system on it. It is a pneumatic system. What are some good pre-checks that you kind of do on that system when you pull it out of the shed, just to make sure that it's functioning properly on a pneumatic type system?
Pneumatic type system, you want to be checking, airing your system up on your planter. You want to be making sure you got no air leaks. Run them roll cleaners all the way up, all the way down. And then with any roll cleaner, you want to look at the bearings on them, along with the disc. You want to be checking for loose bearings and the discs that are worn down too far, because then they're not really doing their job out in the field anymore.
Sure. Okay, going on, we have this this gauge wheel and opener torn off of here for you guys, just to kind of get a better view at this. But openers, I guess, or gauge wheels we could kind of start on. But gauge wheels, we have one here for you guys. This is our spoked gauge wheels. And then we also have a solid gauge wheel, which this would all be enclosed here. But what are some good checks on this gauge wheel here that we're looking for?
The most important part on gauge wheels is checking the bearings. Make sure your bearings aren't loose and the wheel's going to fall off during season. The other one is this edge right here. Eventually you'll get to the point this edge will wear off so much that you won't be able to adjust it to your opener blade. And then the soil is going to be getting in between here and your opener blade, and they're going to be plugging up and your disc won't turn. And result in dragging and poor seed out in the field.
So very key to have a good edge on that inside of the gauge wheel to help run against that disc opener
Absolutely.
blade.
So guys, this thing is where you're setting depth from. This is what's allowing that opener to go further or shallower in the ground. So this is very, very key. And attaching this to the planter. Now there's going to be an arm that comes up here. What are some things that we're going to look at on that arm?
On the arm, we want to be looking at where it mounts to the frame of the planter, make sure the hardware and everything is good, and along with that bearing that is on the top. And then we want to be looking at the arm where it rests up against our mustache, we call it, or the depth stop inside there, making sure that we don't have a big wear spot in there that's going to affect our inconsistent depth.
Okay. Then we also have our opener, which you'd have two of these guys on each row unit. Some good checks on that guy.
Number one, as everybody probably knows, you want to be checking the thickness of that blade. So a new blade is 15 inches. They are wore out at 14 1/4. You got to be looking ahead to see where your acres are going to be for the year, because measuring now at 14 1/2 may not get you through the complete year. So we got to be looking at that. A little bit of a parts thing about them. There is a new heavy duty opener blade that is available. It's a little bit thicker and it's got a thicker bearing housing along with a bearing. The only caveat to it is you got to put a new seed brush protector or seed tube protector in with it.
And just to add on to the disc openers there, what Brian said there, you know, if you're getting close to that 14 1/2 starting the season, you know, there's a good chance we should be changing those because you may not make it all the way through the season. As we've been going forward, it seems like we've got a lot more customers out there that are running no-till or minimal-till situations. That ground is a lot more harder in those situations, and those disc blades will wear faster. So it's something, you know, to make a note of. And if you're doing a lot of no-till or minimal-till situations, keep an eye on those disc blades throughout the season. And then, like the last 2 years, and I'm sure you guys have noticed this too, it just seemed like the ground was a lot harder the last 2 years. And these wear components have been wearing faster with those hard soil conditions. You know, and those soil conditions kind of came from a a lot of those heavy downpours and stuff that we have, you know, coming down. So definitely something to be aware of, and we are seeing these wear components wear a little faster in those situations.
So just to recap here, between these two components here, this is what's really forming that seed trench and making sure that that seed can get all the way to the bottom of the trench where you want it to be when you set up that planter. So these are two very, very crucial for the emergence, the consistency in planting, guys. So very important to go through these. You can get one of these tools, and they're just handy. Sometimes it's tricky to get a tape measure in there and whatnot. If you guys want to check, even in season, it's nice to just be able to throw this kind of up on your seed disc just to verify where you're at. Good check throughout the year, just knowing where you're at there. So kind of to keep going down, we have, like you mentioned before, this is our T-handle. This is what's actually going to adjust that arm for the gauge wheel. Like Bruce mentioned before, there is a mustache on there. It's just a little U-shaped thing, and that's kind of what the gauge wheel arm rests up against. So you just want to make sure, again, that there's no big wear marks in there or on the gauge wheel arms. T-handles, noticing anything with those, Brian?
Not too much with the T-handles.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty reliable part.
Yep, okay. Going down, again, we have a pneumatic closing system here. Same thing with our pneumatic roll cleaners. Again, probably just a good verification to air this system up pre-season and just kind of go down here, check for leaks on any of the air lines, any of the airbags, just to make sure that we're getting into, closing up every row consistently. How about going down further from there, though? What are you noticing on for wear items on that closing wheel, either the frame, wheels, anything like that?
When we move into that, the big part is on those closing wheel frames. You got a bushing that sits there on each side. When those bushings start going out and wearing out, it causes your wheels not to sit centered over your trench and close your seed trench properly. So it's a big key item. We talked about these other items over here, the opener blade, the gauge wheel being real important. This is the next most important part. Closing our seed trench is crucial to making sure that we have good emergence. The next part kind of to it is checking our wheels when we're back there. So we got lots of different choices of closing wheel options out there. You see a spoke type wheel there. We got a rubber closing wheel here. Big thing with these is checking, make sure the bearings aren't out inside of them. And then the next big part of it is when you guys are changing them out, doing different things, making sure we have that correct spacing between the two wheels, so we're closing that trench down properly and not having a problem with a spoked wheel where we have the chance of throwing some seed out of the trench.
Good thing too, just pre-season, just to make sure nothing got pushed around during planting. We always put them down in the ground and just go a little ways, just to make sure that when you bolt this closing wheel frame up, it does have a little bit of adjustability into it. So just making sure that that's truly going over the seed trench and closing that up. This is actually a different style that we offer. This would be just our spring downforce versus our pneumatic downforce. This, if an air leak or a bag were to blow, it would warn you in cab that there's an issue, but on the T-handle system, you have a spring and it's more of a mechanical system. So checking over those springs, because you're not really going to get that alarm in cab. Just making sure that those springs are in good working order, the T-handles, nothing's broken on that. They will wear over time. So just a good pre-season check to give you a peace of mind in planting in season.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. Went down the field, planted, turned around, saw that trench that didn't get closed, come back later in the year, either you're outfield scouting it, spraying it, and you see that row of corn that didn't come up. Well, that just shows how crucial our closing system is.
Yes. Getting that good seed to soil contact, as we always say.
And with that, you guys are talking about how it's easy, pre-season checks to adjust that. During the season, if you're getting out of the cab, and you're walking around your planter, every once in a while, take a walk around that, check your T-handles or your springs on your closing wheel system, give them all a little lift or whatever, make sure you got the pressure there. But then also walk the field a little bit and make sure those closing wheels are centered on your row units.
Absolutely. So that kind of gives you the basic overview, the main stuff that you guys want to check. Again, we just want to make sure that you guys are getting good consistency out of your planters. But there is quite a bit more towards the metering and the delivery system. Now this is an ExactEmerge, which means you have a brush belt system. That's what's going to actually carry the seed down to the trench. And you also have the metering system. So there's kind of some good components in here that we'll kind of go over. Why don't we start with the meter here. You have the cover here that just pops off, clipped on there. What are some good things to check over when you're looking at this meter and the housing and stuff?
Big thing we start with, these are all, most of the part we're floating around with vacuum systems now, so the seals. Making sure we have a consistent vacuum inside there, so we're planting the way we want to be planting. So check your seals out, make sure they're not all hard, not ripped, so we have good vacuum at every row.
So guys, this seal is crucial to getting our singulation. When we have this a good working seal, it's actually going to seal off this meter a little bit, and that's what's going to hold them seats to that disc. So making sure that that seal is in good working order is probably our first step in getting our singulation out of this planter.
Absolutely, yeah. And we have sensors on our planter, but we don't have sensors on every row for our vacuum. So it's one of those things, going through preseason, checking that out, making sure they're all in good condition, just saves us in the long run.
And then before moving on, we do have a knockout wheel. So this is a knockout wheel is what's actually going to go on the outside of the meter housing and actually get that seed to push out of the housing. Good checks on there. Pop this guy out. It's fairly easy to get out of here. So anything that you want to look for in that?
Big thing on our knockout wheel is checking this wheel, making sure it's not loose and almost coming off the end of the bolt. Also looking at the sprocket ends of it and making sure they're not hooked. Once they're getting hooked, they're not doing the job effectively anymore. We got to put a new wheel in.
So, and then this is, if you guys can see this little shiny black strip, that's actually where the seal is going to run. So you want to make sure that you're not having any grooves or scratches that are going to affect that seal. So you have a good sealing surface on there when you're sitting on the meter. So
also with the bolt, we want to be looking at the back side of it. We got all these little segment tabs on here. We want to make sure none of them are broken off. That can happen. And we also want to make sure that none of them will work. Put them on a flat surface and making sure that they sit flat on a table or a bench.
So where would that edge run on here?
So on here, our bowl's going to sit. It's going to run around in a circle on here. It's kind of hard to see, but we got these little ceramic pads here, they call them. That just keeps the bowl from riding on our aluminum housing. So they're one of those wear items we got to be checking yearly to make sure that we're not getting worn to our aluminum housing. Going on farther inside this, we got our doubles eliminator sitting on the top here, which is an adjustable piece. The big thing with that is making sure our tines are to the correct spec length. They can get wore off, broke off. It's just one of the things we got to be looking at.
And they will, you guys will see after quite a few acres on here, you'll see them start to kind of get flat and brittle, and they'll kind of hold a memory where they're folded over. It's probably a good time before season to get those changed out if you're noticing anything like that.
Making our way down, we can talk about our rumble strip. We've got different rumble strips according to what we're planting, but for our corn style here, we got one with little knobs on it. We want to make sure that those little knobs are fully in there. After a while, where the corn sits and agitates, they can go missing. They're very important for agitating the corn, so when the bowl's coming around, it can singulate that corn and put it inside the bowl.
Then you also have, looks like a few brushes here. Again, those can just get worn over time. Just verifying that all those are looking pretty like a square edge, flat top. Anything else on the meter that you can think of itself? There is a bearing in here. Just making sure that this is spinning free. It should spin right by hand. Should take minimal effort on that. So just making sure that that guy's there, and there is another rubber seal in here, again, just for that vacuum portion of the meter, to seal up that bowl.
And then I guess we could talk about one of the most important things we've found over the years with ExactEmerge is checking our hub height. So putting that bowl on there, locking it in, turning it over, and making sure that it's not too loose. That's all adjustable inside there on a mechanism. We pull a pin and can adjust it all. We've learned it really affects how the singulation works on these meters.
So at the high speeds, these bowls are spinning at a very high rate, very high RPMs, and they'll get a wobble in them. So you want to make sure that they're snug and secure to the housing. We've noticed a lot better singulation when it comes to that.
On our standard ExactEmerge row units, you know, with our flat discs on there and flat meters, is that still a crucial setting for the resistance on that?
Absolutely.
seed meter?
It's one of those things that we aren't paying as much attention to, but we want it at a certain tension still. We don't want it too high that the meter's working really hard. We don't want it too loose that we're having the seed get past the plate on the backside.
So guys, if you do have Pro Max, just our standard planters, or even the ME5, you would still have this meter housing. A lot of the same principles apply. You are still going to have the vacuum seals, the covers, The seed plates are going to look a little different, but the same principles apply. You don't want the grooves in there. So just kind of look over them units, make sure that you don't have any nicks, tears in the seals, so you are having good singulation throughout the season. So from here, it is going into either a tube, or on this planter, it's going to go into a belt assembly, which we have taken out. This is a new one here. Anything just at first glance that you're looking at on these cartridges or belts, maybe down here?
Yeah, the big thing on the bottom of them, we got this guide rod on the bottom that's actually knocking the seed out as it's coming back around. If it doesn't fall out of the brush, we want to make sure that that's not bent up into the brush too far, that it's not worn out to the point that it's just like a little piece of lead out of your pencil on the bottom. We want a nice complete rod on the bottom. The other part we can look at is we got a bottom wear strip where the corn's constantly coming down. We want to make sure we don't get any wear spots in there where the corn can ride and move inside the brush. We want that to be nice and smooth. Going along with the brush and talking about that, you have your brush sitting here. The big thing with the brushes, you don't want a bunch of bristles missing inside of them. You're going to eventually have them on the outside that the bristles are going to start missing. I've gone to the fact that you can turn those brushes around inside there, go to the leading edge where the meters come in and get a whole nother year out of your brushes. But the big thing we're watching for is we don't want a big W trench worn down in the middle of our brush. That's where our corn is riding. And if that bristles start missing in the middle there, that corn starts moving and that starts affecting our singulation. The other thing you got to look at is on the back side of them, make sure that the belting is not cracking, that the brush is going to break during the season.
Yeah, so guys, when the meter comes around, it actually inserts that into the brush itself, and then when that brush kind of bends around that curve right here, that's what's spitting it out. So when you start to lose the height on here, it can't push it into the brush, and it might actually start to dribble down or affect our seed placement.
Yep, absolutely. The other one that's common between both of them, we have a seed sensor in a seed tube and in a brush cartridge. Big thing with them is just making sure that they're clean. They sat all year, they might have the seed talc treatment on it, got really hard. You go out planting the first day and you're having all sorts of singulations problem. It's not saying it's planting. Just make sure that those lenses are cleaned in your seed tubes and in your brush belts.
Awesome. So let's say that these guys out here are doing some pre-checks on their planters, and hey, they noticed they either had some worn out openers or gauge wheels and they wanted to buy some new ones and put them on. Any good recommendations to, can we just bolt these on and go to the field, or is there some certain settings? Looks like you have a image that we'll get to you guys over here.
Yeah, the big thing about their opener blades is you're going to want to adjust them when you put on. You pull your opener blade off, there's going to be shims behind them, little washers. You're going to want to try to make sure that you got the even amount of washers on the backside. My little trick to adjusting the contact area on those openers is you put 2 business cards in and you take the measurement between those 2 business cards for your contact area. You want to be anywhere from 2.5 to 1.5 inches. If it's me and I'm putting them together, I want the most contact in the beginning of the season. Because as those blades wear throughout the year, your contact gets less and less. So you want to start with the big number so you don't have a problem with dirt getting shoved in between them. We start forming a W trench on the bottom. One of the very crucial measurements that we have to go through.
Good.
Awesome. And then this planter does have fertilizer systems on it, like Todd had mentioned previous. This is an exact shot planter. We do have some Sentinel system on here as well. Guys, just making sure that we're running this. We could go over, we could spend a day on going over all the different fertilizer systems out there, but just making sure that we're running it, all the orifices are cleaned out, we're getting good consistent fertilizer out of every row, and making sure all that stuff is in good working order.
Yeah, probably safe to say try and run a calibration with some water at the beginning of the season. And
yeah, absolutely.
Make sure everything's running the way it should be.
Correct.
Good. Is there anything else you guys have on the planter at all?
Oh, I think we're well.
Perfect. Well, as you guys can see, this is, a lot of information here. These are some key points on, tillage tools and planters that as you start pulling the stuff out of the shed, some preseason checks, and we just really want to help reassure that you got minimal downtime in the season, and then you're doing the job you want. We got to make sure we're creating that seed bed that's going to give us good ride and good conditions for that planter to plant into. And then as we're out there with our planter, we want to make sure that we're achieving the seed depth that we want with good consistency, creating that good seed furrow, and then being able to close that furrow afterwards. So Andy and Bryant, we really appreciate your guys' help today on going through this, and hopefully you guys have yourself a good season when you get out there.
We're your John Deere dealer coming through for you, Riesterer and Schnell.